Today, I'm sharpening this plane blade using the Veritas MK2 honing guide. Today, I'm going to be using the MK2 to sharpen a little block plane blade. Now, this block plane blade is decidedly not sharp whatsoever. And the way I like to test for sharpness is by using a piece of paper. Simply take the blade, chisel or plane blade on top, and allow the weight of that blade to go into the paper and try to cut the paper. As you can see, this is not cutting whatsoever. Even if I hold it close to the front and try to slice through it like I would a knife through some butter, it is not even getting close to cutting this paper. If I get in there, it's simply tearing the paper. No cutting action whatsoever. So we're gonna go ahead and sharpen this plane blade. Now I want to talk primarily about my sharpening method for a plane blade, but I am going to be using the MK2 from Veritas, this honing guide, and I've got another video that talks in length about this honing guide, so definitely check that out. But very briefly, it's a honing guide that holds your blade in place, and you set it up both using the registration jig and the honing guide. Slip the registration jig onto the guide, lock it down in place. You've got the projection here at the front. It tells you how far out, what angle you're going to be setting up for your blade. Throw the blade in there, set it up nice and square along the registration jig, and then go ahead and clamp it down in the honing guide. Loosen up the registration jig from the front and slip that off, and now your honing guide is ready to go. Now, before I get started, I want to make sure that my roller assembly little notch is pointing up, which is my primary bevel. Later on, we're going to adjust this for the micro bevel. Today, I'm using Morton water stones in my shop, but of course, you can use oil stones, sandpaper, whatever you like to sharpen on. To hold the guide and the blade, there's a handy place here for your thumbs at the back, and then wrap fingers around the front and keep some nice even pressure right here on the front corners. And then simply back and forth, keeping that even pressure. I like to wear the whole stone, going across the stone. And then I'll usually flip my stone around and kind of use the other end. After just those couple of strokes, I can see that I'm wearing here towards the back of the blade. So I have a lot of work to move that all the way to the front of the blade. So I'll be using my 220 here for a little while and make sure I get a nice even shine all the way across from heel to toe of this blade. Now, these Morton stones wear very quickly, especially this 220. So I'm going to go ahead and use the Flat diamond plate, which is just an awesome plate for flattening stones. Like I said, these Morton water stones go out of flat very quickly, and so I use this plate after just, in this case, maybe 50 strokes. I'll go ahead and reflatten it quickly using this plate. Now, after just a couple of minutes, I've gotten about halfway across the blade, but I'm already getting bored of that. So I'm actually going to switch down to the Flat and create the primary bevel on this. And that should take quite a few less strokes overall. And you can do this for setting primary bevel angles and then start working your way through your water stones, oil stones, or whatever. So keeping the same projection, same technique, just back and forth. And that's moving along a lot faster, almost done. So that took maybe 3 to 5 minutes on the diamond plate to get the bevel almost all the way to the front edge. I didn't get it all the way to the front edge yet, but I'm going to make use of micro bevels to get that final front edge polished. So now, even though that took a while, don't get discouraged because you only have to do this one time to set this primary bevel. Now that I've done that, I'm never going to have to re-go all the way back down to here or spend that 3 to 5 minutes. Sharpening now will just be a minute or two at the most. Now the question is, as I go through the grits, do I go straight to the micro bevel and go through grits, or do I keep it at the primary bevel? It's really sort of up to you which approach you want to take. I'm going to go ahead and keep it at the primary bevel for my 220 and 1000, and then switch over to my micro bevel at that point. Now all it took was just those few passes to get a nice, dull, even sheen across the whole blade. Now, before moving on to the next grit, definitely make sure to wipe down your roller assembly and your blade. You want to remove all that grit from the previous water stone before you move to the next one, or else you're going to get uneven wear as you transfer those larger grit particles to your finer stone. So make sure to wipe down the whole thing. And now I'm going to keep it at the primary bevel still and move on to my 1000 stone. Now it's starting to polish up, getting a little more shine on that primary bevel. So again, I'll move up to my 4000 stone. Now you saw me go create the primary bevel, and I didn't get all the way to the front edge, and then I went ahead and started using my higher grits, and they'll get all the way to that front edge. But of course this is an old blade, and as I looked at it closely, I saw there are some nicks all the way right up there at the very tip. So I do want to go and make sure that I establish my primary bevel all the way to that tip to remove those nicks, then work my way up, polishing there to the front. So I've only spent a couple of minutes on the higher grits, but I'm going to have to go back to my diamond stone, get the primary bevel all the way across there, make sure I remove any of those nicks or dings, then work my way up. I can now feel a great burr all the way across, left to right, even polish across the whole bevel. Now I'm ready to start moving my way up the grits. This time I'm going to go all the way up 220, 1000, and 4000 on the primary bevel to smooth that, and then I'll do the micro bevel just on the 8000 grit. I noticed that the wire burr on the back of the edge was pretty significant, and at some point that's going to tear off, and tearing off a large burr can leave a jagged edge on the very tip, which is what you're trying to avoid. You're trying to get a nice smooth edge. Of course, continuing on the stones will smooth it back up, but I decided to go ahead and take that burr off the back here on the 1000 grit. So as I worked my way up 4000 and 8000, I'm just polishing that edge, creating a very small burr that will bend off rather than tear off. And I was actually able to get the burr here. I saw it as I tore it off, and I'm able to show it to you here right on, just placed it on the bevel, two small pieces that ripped off. So that's the burr that's being created on the back. If the higher grit, the diamond stone and the 220 create a huge burr, and you might want to go ahead and take that off before it tears off and ruins your front edge, or not ruins it, but just you're going to have to do a little more polishing to get it back to a nice razor crisp front edge. Now moving on to the 8000, I'm going to go ahead and switch to the micro bevel. I'm going to go ahead and raise it up both notches to 6 o'clock, and just a few strokes through the micro bevel. Now on this one, I'm actually only going to pull backwards. I'm not going to go forwards. I'm just going to go back. You can see the wear all the way across the blade. I'll do 4, 6, 8 strokes, something like that on this side. Just flip it around, another few strokes. Very smooth. And that's it. So you can see the shine just at the very tip, about 32nd, 64th of shine, highly polished right there at the very tip, all the way across left to right. And that's what you're looking for, consistent, straight, all the way across. Now I'm going to go ahead and pop out my blade, loosen the two knobs, pull the blade out, and I'll go ahead and polish the back. Now I like to go ahead and use the ruler trick, especially on older blades. I don't know if it's that flat all the way across. So grab a very, very thin, thin stock here on this edge, and which puts all the pressure there on the back on the other edge, and just a few strokes back and forth is all it takes. Make sure not to roll over the edge, lift it up, and I've just polished again at the very tip all the way across left to right, and now I should have a nice highly polished edge both on the front and the back, meeting at a crisp corner, nice and sharp. So let's go back to our paper test and see how sharp we got this blade. Now this blade doesn't weigh a whole lot, but I'll rest it on top, and the weight of the blade doesn't quite enter the paper, but if I give a tiny push straight down, wow, that's nice. And if I hold it close and slice like I'm slicing some bread, which is easier to do, that gives just nice smooth cuts. You can check out the paper, how it's just a really nice smooth cut. And that's a great, what I find to be more of an objective test to how sharp you're getting your plane blades and your chisels. Of course, the proof is in the wood, but this is a great test as you're going through the sharpening. So that's how I bring back an old plane blade ready for use, using the Veritas MK2 honing guide. Now, when I dull this blade a little bit, to re-hone it is going to be super fast. Now I can just go to my 8000 grit stone, a few passes, that's all it's going to take. The key is consistency, which is what the honing guide really helps with. So whatever medium you use or guides you use, just stick with it, and pretty soon you'll be seeing awesome results.